Women on Wealth is proudly sponsored by First for Women, celebrating leading women.
After she emerged from political exile, she took on the business world, leading a number of corporates in South Africa. Today, however, she uses her influence to fund the educational dreams of women. This is Women on Wealth, and I'm Nozi Pombanjwa. Tonight, we profile Eduloan CEO Totsie Memela. We also speak to Boston City Campus and Business College Dean of Studies, that's Linda Meyer, about the state of tertiary education in South Africa. And in Power Redefined, we bring you Harvard University President Gilpin Faust. Totsie Memela believes the most important gift we can give our children is education, and her company makes sure that young South Africans have the funds to get the education they need. While producer Paula Gilbert sat down with her to find out the importance of providing the opportunity for women to further their education.
Education is important for all, but more so for women. I think as a woman, why education becomes important is that it enables you to have independence. I remember when I was growing up, my mother told me that it was important for me to go to school, one, so that I could get out of poverty. My mother was a domestic worker at the time, that the only way you can take yourself out of poverty is through education. But the second issue is that you don't have to depend on anybody, because in many instances you find that some of the effects that we have, whether we're talking about HIV and AIDS, but the issue of women abuse, it's as a result of the fact that we're not economically independent. So if you're not economically independent, you don't have a choice. Whether you're happy or unhappy in a marriage, you have to stay because you're dependent on somebody else. But thirdly, more than anything else, is for us to be economic contributors, because it's not enough for us to be social contributors in terms of bringing up our families, contributing in the home, but we also need to be economic contributors because the world needs our side too, in terms of making sure that things happen in the world, because you can't utilize only one part of human capital in the development of economies.
So what does Eduloan do in terms of financing female students?
Interestingly, our main agenda is not only focusing on female students, but what is exciting is the fact that the majority of people that actually take loans from us is actually women. And it's more because our loan are what you may call pay-as-you-go. So we provide loans mostly to people that are already professionals, that are working to improve their skills, but also people that are improving the skills of their kids. So 75% of the loans that we do are actually for people that are already working, ranges from the ages of 32 to 55, either because they're funding their kids or they're funding themselves. So the focus is more on continuous development of skills to ensure that companies continue to become more efficient, more productive, and at the same time to make sure that they can be able to continue to help develop the skills of their own kids.
What was the best business advice you were given, and who gave you the advice?
I think the best business advice is continue to educate yourself, educate yourself, educate yourself in terms of, and education in terms of business advice is educating yourself about the industry that you are in. So continue to develop your skills. If you go to a new industry, make sure that you understand more about it. But the other best one is surround yourself with people that are smarter than you, because they can make you the best commander you can be.
What do you think was your game-changing moment in your career?
I think the game-changing moment was me deciding that I don't want to be in politics, and going to a business school where I learned a whole range of skills for me to be able to understand more about business. So it's again the issue of development. And I think having done that, and when I went into banking, for example, I went to university to make sure that I understand banking skills, how banks work, so that I know what I'm talking about. Because if you don't know, it becomes a bit of a challenge.
You've been quoted as saying South Africa needs a moral revolution. What did you mean by that?
I think it's more in terms of making sure that from the home, we make sure that we teach our children moral values, but over and above that, for us as leaders to make sure that the issue of ethics becomes important. It doesn't matter how small the table is that you are responsible for. We also need to make sure that morals that are nation building, that focuses on us making sure that we can focus on the right things for the country to be where it needs to be. And it starts with us, it starts with me. It's easy for us to be judging other people, to say this is not happening in terms of government. It starts with us, because we can argue about the fact that there's corruption in the country, but that corruption takes two to tango. So if we as business ensure that corruption doesn't happen, it therefore means that we will not have corruption in the country as a whole, because it takes two to tango.
You had a hand in drafting South Africa's constitution. So do you think the dream of freedom has been realized?
I think it's a work in progress. I think Jill Marcus said something that was interesting yesterday, that in the life of a human being, 20 years may be a long time, but in the life of a country, 20 years is very short. So I think we still are a work in progress, but we do have a good story to tell. It becomes important for us to make sure that we hold our hands together, so that we can make sure that on things that are lacking in our country, we can make sure that we can fix what is not working, so that we can contribute and make sure that the blood of those people that died, so that you and me can today enjoy the fruits of freedom, does not go, is actually for good reasons, because many people died for you and me.
Women make up more than half of all students at South Africa's tertiary education institutions, and yet they still make almost 20% less than their male counterparts. Earlier I sat down with Linda Meyer. She's the Dean of Studies at Boston City Campus and Business College, and I began by asking her if the degrees that women are studying are really and truly reflective of the needs of the South African economy.
When we look at what women really are studying at the moment, they're focusing on social science degrees. They're focusing on education. That is a very, very popular field for females. And they're also studying in commerce and business. So we see that there's a distinct deficit between females and males when it comes to science and technology.
Why do you think we're gravitating towards what's generally known as the softer skills?
I think females generally just feel more comfortable in the traditional role. But we see statistically that when they do enroll in science and technology and in engineering, that they excel. They far exceed by 5% on their male counterparts, so they do much, much better.
I'm quite certain, and one of the things you're probably very much focused on is actually getting those numbers coming through in the harder subjects, or your commerce subjects where women, or the sciences where we're not really represented. But if you're saying that once we're there, we have a better performance, why then are we still seeing such a large number of men being CEOs and the heads of various organizations relative to women?
I think that we must understand our historic and cultural contexts where males primarily have dominated the economy. And for females to break through, it really is a tough challenge because you must remember that in business, alliances and security comes over a long period of time. And females often enter the workplace or enter a new organization in a high position, but they need to then solidify those relationships and build those trust relationships so that they're able to escalate and elevate their careers quite rapidly.
Women in corporate South Africa who are looking to latch onto relevant postgraduate certificates or degrees to try and move up the corporate ladder, at that level at the very least, are we finding that we're making the right decisions about what it is that's going to get us up the ranks?
Half the vacancies that exist currently from the AdCorp statistics is in the management genre. So Females, obviously we have employment equity targets, and there is a drive, a national drive from government to ensure that those statistics and targets are met. However, the reality of the situation is that females often have to outperform their male counterparts, and they have different balances in life that they need to meet. They have children at home, and they need to obviously prove that they are able to do the cutthroat things that men are able to do, and that they will invest the time and the effort in building the organization.
If the intention is to balance out the scales to some sort, how should women be thinking about the kind of tertiary education that they want to have? How should they make sure that they're not getting into the big pool of the softer skills and actually aligning themselves properly to what the organization needs and what the economy needs broadly?
Well, we know that the economy needs finance, we know that the economy needs management, we know that the economy needs engineering skills, and we know that graduates, if we look at unemployed graduates, we have around 600,000 unemployed graduates. And within those, there's a very clear differentiation about which people are actually unemployed. Engineers, lawyers, and medical doctors, we have a 0.3% unemployment rate. For our BCom and our BComt, we look at about a 3.2% unemployment rate.
What kind of support structures do you think, Linda, we should be thinking about to ensure that we're not seeing a high dropout rate in that particular pool, and that we're able to grow these numbers?
When we look at when females join organizations, it's critical that companies themselves have a proper mentoring system in place, because it's very difficult corporate politics is not a very nice thing to get involved in. And as women, we have a natural tendency to try and ease things out and mediate situations. But we must realize the corporate world is cutthroat. It's very harsh, and you need to work very, very hard. So you need to decide what your balance in life is going to be, and if you want to reach the top, you need to invest the time. You're not going to get any special favors from anybody. Being well educated is one thing, but being workplace savvy is something that's completely different. Corporate politics is a killer, and you need to be able and you need to be willing to play that game.
Every week we bring you a woman who is flexing her power muscles on the global stage. Let's take a look at the woman who runs one of the most prestigious universities. That's Harvard President Drew Gilpin Faust. You shouldn't park 6 blocks away from your destination because you're afraid you won't find a closer space out front. Go first where you want to be, because you can always circle back. This is the advice that Harvard University President Drew Gilpin Faust often gives to her graduating students. She is the first woman to serve as Harvard's president and was ranked at number 33 on this year's Forbes list of the world's most powerful women. As president of the Ivy League school, she has expanded financial aid to improve access to students of all economic backgrounds and advocated for increased federal funding for scientific research. That's all we have time for this week's episode of Women on Wealth. Do keep in touch, following me at Nozi Pombandra, and don't forget our hashtag is Wow410. We want to know who is redefining the concept of power in your world. Until next time, stay empowered.